Hi again guys, and welcome to another installment of Dirtmasters Unplugged on Gran Turismo 6 in particular. And this series, for those who are maybe unfamiliar with it, is where we take a vehicle which may not have a rallying counterpart already featured on Gran Turismo, or maybe it does, but you want to try something a bit different to that, something less expected, maybe a specific replica or a custom, and then we turn it into a rally car. Now, this vehicle does have a real-world Group N rally version, but that version, of course, is not on the game. And the car is the ST165 Toyota Celica GT-Four. Now, as far as the visuals go, there's very little that you actually need to do. I would recommend having it in white, because that's about as close to the actual car's livery that you can get. You don't have to do that, but that's what I've done. You could go with the white that comes with the car as standard. I've gone for Scotia white from Mitsubishi because it's a brighter, cleaner looking white, but as I said, it's down to you. So as we always do, we'll first of all run through the mechanical setup, then we'll take it out on the dirt and see if it can actually hack it as a rally car. Now, as you can see straight away from the specs on this vehicle, it's not quite as strong as you might expect. It's only got 200 horsepower, weighs 1480 kilos, and that only levels it out to 400 pp. So as far as rally cars go, especially real ones, it doesn't necessarily sound that impressive. Now, I'm not sure if it was a typo as far as the weight goes. I did have to translate it from, I believe it was Russian, but I can't recall what the language was. Some weights say 1430 kilos, some say 1480, so I'll leave it down to you, of course, whichever you want to go for. I've gone for the higher of the two because that tends to be the more accurate, and also to round it off to 400 pp, but as I said, it's down to you. As far as tyres, of course, we've gone for dirt, or go for snow if obviously you're going to take it on a snow track. As far as the suspension, I've increased the ride height relatively similar to stock to 160. As far as springs, we've rounded those off and increased them a little bit as well to 4, front and rear. Dampers and anti-roll we've got on 3, neutral camber and toe. Of course you could give it some if you want to, but you'll see in just a second that you don't really need to on this particular car because of the centre split in particular. Now, as far as the gearbox, from what I could find, the specs that I could find, it appears to use essentially the same gearbox as the normal vehicle, which saves you a bit of money on the build. As far as the diff, I would recommend the lowest initial torque, the highest acceleration, and the lowest braking. But of course, as I always say, feel free to change those. It's totally based on personal preference and driving style. I've gone for the twin plate clutch because you haven't got a huge amount of power and torque to be dealing with, carbon prop shaft, and this is the reason why you don't really need camber. It's got a 50-50 torque split. The real car has a 50-50 torque split in rally form, so with that much going to the front end, you just don't really need that much camber. You could go for it if you want to, but it's not entirely necessary. As far as power, you've got a couple of options, because obviously it's pretty easy to get 200 horsepower out of this car. Just give it an oil change and basically fit the exhaust manifold or the cat, and you get there straight away, essentially. What I wanted to do, though, is to round it off to 400 pp as well. So I've gone for the Stage 3 engine tune, the manifold and the intake tuning, and then reduced it down to 78%. So again, it's down to you. And as far as the weight, you want to increase it compared to stock, which is strange for a rally car, so I'm not sure if that was a typo or not, but either way, those are the specs that we've got to work with. So you want to add 130 kilos, or go for 1430 if you want to, and then I've opted to put that 20% towards the front to improve that weight distribution in terms of getting the tail out around corners and improving its overall weight split in a rally scenario. So that's it for the build, and there are a couple of variation points that you can go for, of course. So now all that remains is to take it out on a dirt track to see what it can do. Now, personally, I think the really impressive thing about this particular car is, despite the fact that it seems initially to be relatively underpowered and far heavier than you typically expect a rally car to be, it actually manages to perform in a far better way than those specs would indicate. And I have a feeling, although I haven't actually raced it, that this could well be one of those vehicles which, if you do decide to race in, say, PP specific or power specific rallying, could be a weapon. Now, I would not recommend drifting through corners, or the handbrake as we call it here in the UK, which is a method that I often use, for instance, for hairpin corners. With the 50-50 split, that doesn't really work for this car, so I would recommend just using the brakes and basically take the corner as you would on the road, because the handling is that good and the grip is that good that the car will just fly through the corners basically in a totally undramatic way. So it doesn't necessarily look great going around hairpins and sliding, but it gets the job done. So overall, if you do decide to use this build for rallying, I hope you have a lot of fun with it, of course, and potentially find it to be competitive as well. But that's it for this build. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.